Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I think it's really interesting how poor communication is the root of so many problems, and a lot of organizations just either don't know that or refuse to face up to it. And when we talk about writing in particular, you think about poor writing creates lots of problems in terms of documents getting out the door in time. It creates a lot of problems in terms of, clients understanding what it is that you're trying to say. It can hurt a company's reputation. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And so, leadership has to model good communication, whether we're talking about writing, whether we're talking about presentations, whatever the case may be. Good communication is paramount in a company running effectively and efficiently. What happens oftentimes is that companies will pay lip service to good communication, and we need to communicate better, and the writing needs to improve, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But then what happens when it comes down to really doing something about it, they don't. There's a big assumption oftentimes that people, especially if they're college educated, that they know how to write well, that they can communicate well, that kind of thing. But if the organization doesn't support people in terms of their writing, in terms of their communication, then the communication suffers. So there's all kinds of things that go into that. But organizations, leadership has to be, they're the impetus for good communication. So if they're not modeling it and they're not supporting it, then it just doesn't work well. And I'll give you, for instance, we're working with a client right now, and one of the questions, so we're doing what we call a communication audit. And in the communication audit, we go into companies and we look at the tools they have for writers, and we talk to the writers and we talk to the reviewers to find out what's actually going on in terms of their written communication. And what's interesting is a lot of the writers do not feel supported in terms of the writing they do. So they don't know what to expect. So they're just writing to get it done. And so what you have is a total failure in the communication itself, because they don't know what to expect. Leadership isn't guiding them, and they're just doing what they can in terms of writing just to survive. So there's a lot of assumptions made when you talk about communication. Communicators make assumptions about who they're communicating to and with and for, when in fact they don't. They should be doing a deeper dive into understanding who in fact their readers are, who they're communicating with, how that person is going to take the message, that kind of thing. And these are things that frankly just really aren't taught in universities. And I talk about this all the time in my LinkedIn posts, but universities do a terrible job, quite frankly, of teaching people how to write well and how to communicate well.
Mm, I share totally your opinion. So the problem itself is the lack of capacity to put ourselves in the shoes of others, so that we know what they expect. Is empathy the problem?
I don't know if empathy is the problem. I would say it's more of a lack of awareness of expectations from the, you're right. So I'm communicating with someone. What are their expectations? What do they expect from me? And how do I deliver that? Instead of, it may be empathy. I'm not an expert on that, but I think more to the point, it's a lack of understanding who you're communicating with and what their expectations are, and meeting those expectations and their needs. One of the things they have to figure out is why there's a problem with the communication. So a lot of organizations will just say, oh, we need a writing course, or we need this kind of course, or we need that kind of course, which may or may not be the case. If you don't take the time to understand what the problem is, you're spending money needlessly on training that may or may not fix the problem. And that's one of the reasons why we developed the communication audit, because that's a way for us to figure out what the root problems are. So if you understand what the root problems are, right, then you can figure out how to fix them. But if you don't know what they are and you're just guessing, then you may be right, but you may not be right. And so one of the things, that's one of the things we do with our communication audit is help companies figure out what the real problems are. Because sometimes it's the writers, sometimes it's leadership. Sometimes it's both, right? But it's very easy for organizations to get caught up in this swamp, if you will, of they do the same things over and over and over again. Nothing ever improves. They never get out of that swamp of miscommunication because they never take the time to figure out what the problems are.